Hey folks, doing the lobby turn?
Yeah.
Great, right, follow me.
And you're John.
So ever since the 1920s, thousands of people here went onto the streets at that time to protest for their civil rights. The three main principles was to protest for the right to vote. That was the first principle. Second principle was to protest for housing. And the third principle was to protest for employment. Ever since the 1920s, ever since the partition of Ireland happened here, that was the three main principles of why people here went on the streets. The first ever civil rights march here in Derry City would have been on October the 5th, 1968. That day would become one of the biggest moments in the civil rights story. 300 people that day from Duke Street across the city there, over the train station, the RUC attacked the first civil rights march here in Derry. That's the day that, especially a lot of people here in Derry would say, that's the date that the Troubles began, October the 5th, 1968, because when the police attacked that first civil rights march here in Derry, that was the line drawn on the sand here, and so people had enough then at that time, been treated as second-class citizens by the Unionist government in Belfast at that time. That then galvanises then thousands then onto the streets. 4 or 5 weeks later after that, on the 16th of November 1968, 15,000 people actually marched from the railway station, and they marched into the city centre that day. The police, the RUC police, couldn't stop that march, but it showed that people from all around Ireland here arrived in Derry for the second civil rights march. And so between 1968, the 5th of October, right up until January, the 1st of January, and that was the third march here in Derry. So, folks, on the 1st of January then, on the 1st of January, 300 students from Queen's University in Belfast then led a march from Belfast to Derry. That march was called the Long March. That was actually based on the Selma to Montgomery March, the famous march that Martin Luther King in Alabama, the United States of America, held. And so a lot of the protests here were actually based on what King was doing with that. And all these people here, this mural here, were inspired by Martin Luther King in the United States of America. So the Belfast to Derry march was a significant march as well, because on the fourth day the young students arrive outside Derry and they are attacked again by the RUC police and by Protestant mobs. That day there was about 2,000 people waiting on the young students, but they get a severe beating by the RUC batons that day on the outskirts of Derry. So later that day they arrive inside in the city centre, and there was a bit of a standoff in the city centre. Then later that night the RUC attacked into the bogside here. And when they attacked into the bogside, they were chased out of the bogside. And later that night then, the young people painted the wall, "You are now entering free Derry," was painted on that wall that night. So we're now going to walk over here, folks, this little sign here. We're going to talk about what happened here on Bloody Sunday on the 30th of January 1972, when 14 innocent people were shot dead here in this area here. So we're going to go to this sign and talk about how the killings actually happened here on the day itself. Okay. Okay, folks. On the 3rd of January 1973, this story here more or less tells the story of what happened here on Bloody Sunday. What I'm now going to explain to you here now in the next 15 or so minutes is how people died here on Bloody Sunday, according to the 18,000 people who were here. In this area here, this is where the killings actually took place. After young Jackie Dudley was actually shot dead, 6 young boys were shot dead here. Most of the young boys who were shot dead here on Bloody Sunday, 6 or 7 of the young boys were actually 17 years old. And this is the iconic image of Bloody Sunday. Father Daly waving the white handkerchief after a young Jackie Dudley was actually shot dead by the first, he was the first young boy who was shot dead that day. And the names of the young boys who were shot dead here were Michael Kelly, Michael McDade, Kevin McElhinney, John Young, William Nash, Hugh Gilmore. So folks, at 7 minutes past 4 that Sunday afternoon, 18,000 people were in this area. And at 7 minutes past 4, the 1st Battalion of the Parachute Regiment, these guys here then, They charged into the bauxite, and between 4:10 and just 4:30, 13 people were shot dead. 17 people were injured that day as well. So this is the area where the killings actually took place. Some of the soldiers actually left the street that afternoon and actually they ran into this car park. And when they ran into this car park, they opened fire on about 100 civilians, including my brother who was killed that day as well. So we're going to go in here now and I'm going to describe to you something of how people died here on the day. So you follow me now, we're going to the car park. So folks, what then happens here is that 100 civilians actually run to this car park. What then happens here next is that 7 or 8 soldiers then actually enter the far right hand corner of this car park, and the soldiers who enter this car park open then fire, indiscriminate fire into the crowds here in this area. Just before that happens, Michael Kelly is actually carried from the street there, because when everyone looked out to the street, they seen that Michael Kelly was actually still alive. Where we stood there now, Michael Kelly was actually lying in that area, but they seen that Michael was still alive, and they brought Michael in here, and when they brought Michael's body into this car park, the 5 or 6 soldiers entered the car park, and they indiscriminate fire into the crowds. What then happens here is that my brother was actually shot here. He fell here. He had a bullet wound to his back. So our William, my brother, was actually shot dead here by Soldier F at that time.
The soldier in the alphabet shot on William.
And then 3 bodies then fell to the ground. Like I said here. He fell here. He had a bullet wound to his back, and here was a young boy lying. He was called Joe Mahan, 16 years old. And just at that corner, Jim Ray was lying face down with a bullet wound to his back. Jim Ray was still alive at that stage. What then happens next here is best described by the young boy who was lying here. Joe Mahan, who was a 16-year-old boy, was lying here. He was playing dead because just before the soldiers actually came forward, Joe heard a woman's voice, and she was calling to people who were lying on the ground here to lay still, don't move, lay still, don't move. So Joe knew he was in danger. The 5 or 6 soldiers then start to come forward. When they start to come forward, Soldier G walks along that fence, and Joe witnessed the killing of Jim Ray. Jim Ray at that stage was alive, and he was actually trying to crawl forward. And when he was actually trying to crawl forward, Soldier G walks up behind him, put the rifle point blank range to his back, and shot him dead. Soldier G then went into that car park, or into that area there just beyond us here, and that's when he killed Jerry McKinney at point blank range, and he also kills a young boy, a 17-year-old boy called Jerry Donaghy. He then walks back into this car park. He stands beside the body of Jim Ray, who moments later he had shot dead also, and he has a conversation with Soldier F. Soldier G then says to Soldier F, "I got an hour to Dave. I got an hour to Dave." And that was Soldier F that he was talking to. And then Soldier F then runs to that corner, fires across the street, and he kills the last 2 people on Bloody Sunday. Barney McGuigan was walking out to try and help an injured man who was laying across the street, who was called Paddy Doherty. Paddy Doherty at that stage was still alive, and he was actually calling for help. His last words to Barney McGuigan was that he didn't want to die alone, and he wanted comfort. And when he walked out to try and help, when Barney McGuigan then walked out to try and help Paddy, Soldier F fires across the street and kills them both dead. They were the last 2 people to die that day on Bloody Sunday. So folks, we're now going to go down to this corner here. There's some bullet holes here from the day of Bloody Sunday. There's actually 2 bullet holes from the day of Bloody Sunday, which was the gunfire by the soldiers who came into the car park that day. So we're going to go into it. So folks, these are 2 actually bullet holes from the day of Bloody Sunday. Apparently this was the gun fired by Soldier Hicks. Soldier Hicks was part of that group of soldiers who came in here, and he was the guy who actually had his rifle at his hip, and he started to spray people with the bullets. Apparently he was the 3rd soldier who came into the car park between Soldiers F and G, the 2 soldiers who were the main soldiers who did the killings here then here in the athletic car park that day. So in this area then, that Jerry McKinney was killed. Before Jerry McKinney was killed, he had his arms above his head, and he was offering to the soldier that he was not threatening him. And Soldier G then shot him through the chest. The bullet went right through his body and killed a 17-year-old boy that was standing behind him, called Derry Talking. And at that time then, our William was actually lying there, and he was dying, if not dead at that stage. And at that time, I was just an 8-year-old boy, and I just wanted to run around on my bike at that time. And but when you think back now, all these things were happening at that time. Our William was lying here, and he was dying or dead at that stage. At that time, I was an 8-year-old boy in Craigan, and I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him, which I would have done. I remember that day standing at the front door with my mother and seeing our William go across the street and walk across the street. And that was the last time that I seen our William alive. I mind that day watching him walk across the street until he faded away into the background, and that was the last time we seen our William alive. But I'm just sorry now that I never got a chance to say goodbye that day. So this is the area where Jerry McKinney and Derry Talking was shot by Soldier G. Jerry McKinney was shot dead at point blank range here, and the bullet went right into Jerry McKinney's body, went into the body of Jerry Talking. Dan,
Hey, bud, come here. Hey.